Reparations for the transatlantic slave trade. Now, Labour are putting into place that they're considering paying black people reparations for the slave trade. Now, there's loads of aspects of this which is just completely fucking wrong. So I just want to go through a few of them. One, black people also own slaves. So we've got to go through every single person's history. There's a lot of white people that didn't own slaves. So why should they pay for slavery? The other aspect is everyone in Britain that is old enough, sorry I can't be bothered to do the math, but any person in Britain that has paid tax up to 2015 has actually paid reparations for all the blacks. It weren't a case of white people, well, it weren't a case of slave owners just freeing all the slaves as soon as in the 1800s when we put it into law that slavery was abolished. It weren't a case of that. At the time, wrong as it is, black people were classed as private property. So what the government had to do to abolish slavery was to pay slave owners for every slave that was released. Now this caused a national debt in the UK that wasn't paid up until 2015. So if you've paid tax prior to 2015, you have actually paid reparations for the slave trade. Now my last point is that if black people get paid reparations for slavery, does that mean that every single white European can then claim reparations from the Muslims for their slave trade? Their slave trade started in the 7th century, not the 13th, not the 16th, not the 18th. It started in the 7th century and it still exists even to today. It's not as prevalent as it was, but I mean, the Arabs didn't discriminate. They enslaved everyone. Even Muslims were slaves to other Muslims. There's actually Sharia law, a lot of references in Sharia law to slavery, and there are different categorisations between disbelievers who are slaves and Muslims who are slaves. So when is this reparations thing going to stop? Is it everyone in the world at the moment descends from people who were in slavery? Except obviously these untouched tribes that haven't came across any other sort of culture. But it's just madness to me that we should be paying people based on their race for something that ended 200 years ago. It's incredible. But this is another way that the government is trying to cause racism within society. They're trying to cause inequality between blacks and whites so that we see people differently as blacks and whites. Now, Morgan Freeman, I saw an interview years back with Morgan Freeman, and they said, how do you stop racism? And he turned around and said, I don't see you as being a white guy. You don't see me as being a black guy. That's how we end racism. And that is so true. I mean, to hate somebody based on the colour of their skin is just totally nonsense. I mean, you cannot say that a black Somalian Muslim that would bury a woman up to the neck and pelt stones at them is the same as a Jamaican Christian person that goes to church every day, or is the same as a Rastafari who just smokes weed and has a chilled out life, you know. These people are not the same just because of the colour of their skin. I'm British. I'm not the same as a German. I'm not the same as a French person. I'm not the same as a fucking anyone else in Europe because we're all white. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous notion, and to hear that the Labour are thinking about bringing in reparations for black people is just idiotic, insane, and it just shows racism, to be honest. But Labour have always been racist. Do you remember a few years ago there was a BBC Question Time and they were talking about illegal immigration, and a woman stood up, obviously a Labour supporter, and said that we need illegal immigration because who else is going to serve my coffee in Pret? It's modern day slavery. We'll bring in a load of foreigners, we'll lower the wages for all the working class British people, and we will treat them like fucking slaves. Now, this is all under a leftist ideology. Now, I know we've had Tory government for a while, but the Tories aren't right-wing. They're leftists. They all want government control. They all want to take people's personal property and wealth away. Whether you vote Tory or Labour, there is no right-wing representation within government. This is because government want power. Power is left-wing ideology. You won't find no libertarian left-wing person, because libertarian means that you want less government. Leftism relies on more government. They'll take your private property, they'll take your private equity, your wealth, everything you've invested, they'll just take away from you and spread it across the nation, making everyone equally as poor. Now, I'm upset with the UK for voting Labour, but I can understand it. The Tories screwed up so bad. And this is democracy in the UK. You have two choices, Labour or Tory. At least with fascism, you kind of only have one choice. I mean, what sort of nation are we at when the difference between democracy and fascism is you can vote for another party? I mean, come on. 1997, they took our guns away from us. 2024, they are going to take our lives from us. Thank you for listening to this rant. Please like, share and subscribe. This has been The Pope's Perspective. I'm Matthew Pope, and thank you ever so much for listening.